Hello and welcome to Make the Logo Bigger. My name is Brenton. This podcast is your gateway into the world of advertising production, crafted especially for those who are stepping in new, aiming to become producers, or simply eager to understand the inner workings of advertising and marketing. We're here to share insights and knowledge you've been looking for, with stories, tips, and real conversations from the pros. We're simplifying the process for everyone with a production curiosity. Whether you're just starting out or keen to explore the production side of ads, you've found the right place. Let's jump in. Today's guest is a storyteller who doesn't just direct, he conducts. J.H. Walker joins us for a raw, honest chat about what it means to hold on to humanity in a world driven by AI, deadlines, and deliverables. He talks about why writing your vision down, distilling it into words and pictures, isn't just about selling the treatment. It's about testing your thinking, making it legible, and making it real. We dive into what happens on set when chaos strikes and the director becomes the ringmaster, and why a good producer isn't just a project manager, but a shield, a translator, and an ally. JH also opens up about his love-hate relationship with AI, a tool that can now mimic his visual style with eerie accuracy, which leads to the big questions. What is creativity if everyone can make it? And what is the meaning of something being unique if nothing we see feels unique anymore? This episode is more than just about making commercials. It's about fighting to bring truth to the frame and reminding ourselves why we got into this in the first place. JH, it's just wonderful to have you on. Second director we've had on. Great to get the opportunity to talk to somebody with your caliber and experience. Looking forward to it. In your bio, now you talk about being driven by the mission of bringing the human condition to life. Do you think somewhere along the way that we've started to forget what truly connects us?
As an industry or as humanity?
Go humanity.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think everyone is looking for a way to find themselves. I think humanity is who you are in your bedroom alone at night when it's scary and lonely and, life feels tough and hard. Nothing's going to really help you come out of that if you don't have an essence of who you are and what your worth is. And I think as a creative person, it's incredibly easy to want to combine the two and to say, I'm only as good as my next job. Or I'm only as good as my last job. And as a director, that's impossible to say, because I might have done my last job. Every job that I do could be the last, and if I have nothing left in my reservoir of humanity, then I'm only as good as what work comes my way. And then as soon as you become useless as a human, you become useless as a storyteller, because then you've got nothing to say.
So how do you bring that humanity to life on screen in pictures?
Well, first of all, the script has to have some potential for humanity. There needs to be something that I can see, that I can tell a story with, some emotional arc, some kind of a narrative where characters are involved. And then I personally find it very important I really believe in the question of why. Why are we telling this story? Why are we here in the first place? What's the purpose of this thing? Why for everything? And once you've got that structure and you understand the one word key phrase of what it is that we are trying to sell, and not necessarily sell as a product, sell as an emotion, sell as an idea, sell as a piece of communication, I think then that opens up a space on set. It opens up an understanding of why, if I know exactly why I'm there, and the DOP knows why he's there, and the actors know why they're there, it suddenly opens a room for play. It opens a room for spontaneity, for a moment where a child looks at the dad in a certain way, or light falls onto an object in a certain way, and finding those moments without just grabbing it for the sake of grabbing more, or not grabbing it at all because you think it's irrelevant. As soon as you understand why you're there and what you're doing and what you're searching for, then little glimpses can become important, and things that you think is important suddenly becomes unimportant or irrelevant.
So as the ringmaster, how do you enable that with your crew? How do you enable that with your talent when you're on set with them?
Funny you say ringmaster, because it's actually, when you sent them questions, that's one of the things that a DP many years ago told me, JH, We are a big circus and you are the ringmaster. And that's always stayed in my head, and it's scary when there's lions and bears and clowns juggling and trapeze artists about to fall to their deaths. And, that's what it feels like. And then you've got this massive crowd of people all looking at you going like, where's it going to go wrong? I reckon in a circus, you get entertained more by what's going to potentially go wrong than what's going right. And it's that thrill that I love. I love being on set when things are about to just go chaos. It's just like, I love it when it's just like this. I remember when we shot Disneyland Hong Kong, and man, I think there must have been like probably 100 people, and it was what felt like 50 degrees Celsius, and it was just like and it was just chaos. And just you look around and you suddenly go like, everyone is waiting for me to go like, and go, or an action, or whatever you want to say. And I love that energy that comes from maintaining order in what seems to be complete chaos. And again, that goes back to the why. If you know why you're shooting that moment, and you know what, it's like building a puzzle, but it's a puzzle rather. It's like conducting an orchestra that is constantly wanting to run away. It's like ADHD kids that are like, blow the trumpet here and then gets up to pick up. Like, you have to constantly go like, no, just play this note, man. Just let's just get through the song. But when you get to do that and you listen to the song at the end of the day, and it touches people emotionally, there's no better feeling than that.
So obviously quite scripted. You have 30 seconds. Excuse me. You have 30 seconds. You've got your shot boards listed out. How do you give yourself room to be able to react when you are on set to, the magic that appears that you can't actually plan for?
I love the edit suite. And I think my style of filming, I shoot fast. I don't like faffing around. I hate faffing around. I hate waiting for stuff to happen. And I'd rather be shooting accidental moments while setting up than sitting waiting around having a cup of coffee. And I found that often that's got a duality. Sometimes it's, if you allow the extra little bits that you are after to become more than just grab it, and as soon as you go like, let's do it again, and let's do it again the third time, you should walk away from it, because if it's not scripted, now you're taking time from what is scripted. So I think your relationship with your AD and with your producer is important, and with the agency and the clients. I mean, I often would tell them, listen, I'm going to be shooting things that's not on the board. That's not necessarily, I don't even know what it is yet because I haven't seen it yet, but I might on the day. If you see me filming something, it's not like I'm making my own short film on the side. I'm just grabbing textural moments and movement and little moments that can make the edit suite. And then once you're in the edit suite, I love finding bridging shots to go from one piece of communication to the next. And that might be through movement, that might be through light, texture, just a moment of a performance. And I think also because my work primarily deals with a visual narrative and doesn't rely on dialogue, or I don't want to say performance because it is obviously a performance as well, but it doesn't have dialogue. My communication is literally in the look of an eye or in the movement of a hand. I keep filming until I feel that connection, because it helps nothing if the child looks at the dad, but the dad's looking, so it's that. So I just try and find the energy on set to make it as natural as possible for people. But I also believe that the reason that they feel natural is because we're moving through it fast. I'm not asking them to do it over. And I mean, sometimes I do. I had a DP once said to me, I heard I was shooting with you, so I bought extra cards. So I do shoot a lot, but I don't like. I think I shoot a lot because I know that I'm working with 12 frame shots, or a second is long for me. So I can see it when it's hard to explain, but I think it's because I like the edit. I love sitting in the edit suite with my editors, and they are part psychologists, part editors, because it's always like after every shoot, that's the place where you go. Bleh. So the first 24 hours in the edit suite is always just like how much you hate life, how much this will never work, everything's bad. and then you kind of go, actually, it's not that bad. It's not, and then you get to that point where you're like, actually, it's pretty nice. Well, I'm happy about what we have. So it's a roller coaster ride, man. It's sometimes I feel like the clown in the circus and not the ringmaster.
So, how different do you find is the story from when you in pre-production to when you get to the end? How different do you find the story changes or evolves?
I mean, I can only talk for my own work. I tend to deliver very close to the board. I mean, I say I find moments on set, but it's usually moments that I would have known needs to be in the film to create the edit that I see. And I usually do put those little moments and textures into my boards. It could just be as a list of things that I need, and we kind of find them as we go along. But I'd say I kind of stick 90 to 95% to what I usually set out to achieve is what I then deliver. It's very rare. Southern Cross is a good example of where that didn't happen. It was briefed to us, and I won the job on it just being like this old man giving his grandchild some advice and talking about his life. And I think we had 4 or 5 scenes written in the script. I mean, it's years ago, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but anyway, it didn't have that density that it has at the moment. And as I was flying to New Zealand to go and film it, I suddenly thought, but memories doesn't work that way. Memories aren't clean little structural things. So I convinced the client and the agency that I want to shoot a lot more, just like little moments. And I'm really proud of that edit because we were able to really push the pace of, and it was nice because we literally, I told Stefan to let's just drop an egg next to a shoe. Let's just someone on a trampoline. It was just like little moments. While we were in a restaurant shooting one thing, I would turn around and say, let's just get this, let's get that, let's get that. And, I always mention that job because it was the best victory that I've ever had in an edit suite. Because everyone was like, "This is way too fast," and I'm like, "If I have to hear it's too fast in one more edit, it's like, it's like the set standard what I hear every time. It's like, it's great, JH, but it's really fast." And I'm like, "Yeah, just get used to it because it needs to be that fast." Anyway, so that was a nice victory in the edit suite.
What have you learnt along the journey with those kind of conversations when you are wanting to make adjustments? Have you figured out an easier way of doing it? Or is it that it's just like, hey guys, I think this is going to be amazing. I've just had a really great think about it. This is going to be amazing. Trust me.
Yeah, I think it depends on the client. As an example, I just did Rio Tinto with Clockwork, and it was one of those jobs where they literally trusted me with anything. The head client said, "We want this and we think it should be this, but at the end of the day, JH, if that's what you want, then that's what we want." And that was amazing because it's rare that you get that level of complete trust. Obviously, I couldn't go and make it into a musical or whatever I felt my fancy wanted to take me. But I also think that level of trust comes from a level of respect that I show them from the beginning. Up until the point where they started trusting me that much, we had 50 things that went wrong that we had to change, that I accommodated them in their changes. I never once, there's no point as a director to push back and go like, no, it's my vision. I'm not making a movie. If it was my movie, if I was some sort of auteur, I'm sure there are those directors out there. Yeah, I don't know if I would say I would love to be one because I like the collaboration. I like the pushback. Because at the end of the day, I understand that all of us has to answer to someone else. At the end of the day, I might be the director, but I'm definitely not the be all and end all of the vision. At the end of the day, I'm serving a purpose. I'm part of the machine that's building something. So, but on other things, sometimes like a lot of people who's heard my story about the Air Force commercial where the first thing that they wanted to take out was the horses, and I had horses in my treatment, and they said, well, really don't feel that like the horses are necessary, and I kind of like, okay, fine, let's take it out, because I knew in my mind we still had jets and freaking everything that we possibly needed to make a cool commercial. But as the job went on, I realized that It's incredibly difficult to maintain the original vision, without any contamination coming in. And sometimes that opinions of other people is important, because and it's crucial that you listen to it, because sometimes it's actually a better idea, or the challenge of creating a solution for a problem creates a better idea. It's not necessarily that they have a better idea, but it can lead to a better product. But with that, I realized that we are losing the essence of what this job is about. And anyway, long story. I mean, we had a. I mean, I don't fight, and I don't lose my temper, and I don't throw my toys, and I think, if anything, people have always thought I'm incredibly intense, and I am, but it's just because I'm passionate, and it's because I have an Afrikaans accent, and I'm a South African, and I talk loud, and I'm tall, but I'm actually a very gentle, very accommodating director. So anyway, in the Air Force spot with the horses, at the end of the day, we kind of convinced the client to bring the horses back after a big, let's just call it a conversation, and one of the first things that they said in the edit suite when they came and watched it was, we love the horses. And for me, that was always maintained a story where I just felt it in my gut that something is missing. It just needs, and I was very happy to see the client turn around and go, okay, now I see it. And that taught me a lot, because in my mind, it was always just a snort of a horse, and it was just a moment. It's just a flare of energy. But if you say to a client, we're going to have horses, they're going to think, on the beach with people and close-ups and hooves, and and it's important that you communicate that, no, it's, yes, I'm saying horses, but it's, think about it in terms of, so that they don't make something bigger of it than it is. So to answer your question, communication is crucial. You have to say, you have to understand why they want it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, oh, well, the agency is being stupid, or the client is being dumb, or whatever. That's silly, because without them, you'll be working at Subway, and so respect them. But secondly, also, it's like, everyone wants to have a good experience on set. No one wants to fight. No one wants to walk away going like, this is such a horrible experience. So accommodate them. They're also there to do a job. And I find that just mutual respect is always very important.
The Air Force commercial that you've mentioned, it's called What Is Up. I recommend people go and watch it, because it is visually incredible. I think it's one of the top pieces of work I've ever seen. And how did that come about for you?
Well, thank you, first of all. That's nice to hear. Yeah, it was an incredible experience. Well, obviously I was fighting for the opportunity to create something really visual, as every director does. And when this came to me, I was just like over it, like a emaciated dog over a piece of meat, man. I was like, no one's going to touch, no one's going to take this from me. So I think a lot of my energy went into just the treatment. We created this whole like flight manual book, and we had artwork created, and we printed it all out, and it was just beautiful, and I brought the agency in early on, and we had post-it notes everywhere, because what I tried to find was just a structure of how to tell the story, and not just have roles in the Air Force that needs to be conveyed, but how do I actually create a story. So everything was kind of like interwoven, and I think they just saw the passion in me, because it's easy to see passion. It's another thing to trust it. And hats off to everyone, and Stu and Seamus and everyone who was involved in that, for trusting me at the first place, because it's a big job to go wrong. I was always, whenever we were filming the fighter pilots coming past us in the helicopter, at one point one pulled away too early. And I was like, where are they going? And they were like, they're going back to base. They just had a sensor go off that says proximity warning. And they were like, and in my head, I'm like, I can just see the newspaper article, South African director kills Australian pilot on first big shoot. Kind of like, so, yeah. So I think it came about with just people trusting me, giving me an opportunity. And allowing someone with a lot of passion and what they saw as a vision to bring it about. So at the end of the day, as a director, we are only as good as the opportunities we are given. So yeah, I'm always thankful for everything that comes my way. It doesn't matter how big or small.
Because I've heard from the CD tell the story, or perhaps told myself, that it was something that you couldn't convey in a treatment. You asked the creative team to come over because you actually had it mapped out on the wall. Are there times when you are creating that you wish that you didn't have to try and tell it through just words and pictures on a paper?
Yeah, every time. Always. Whenever I get a brief, usually I see it quite early on. I either see it very early on and I see it exactly, or I find it by building it up from the surface. But when I see it immediately, I often wish that I can just plug them into my head and go like, this is it. Because as soon as you start looking for visual references, it's like, yeah, it's a little bit like that, but it's not like that either. It's, and then I think the whole trick comes in through condensing your thinking into a way that is legible and understandable. But that process of writing it down and putting it into words and putting it into pictures is also a discipline that questions your thinking all the time, because it's one thing to have that vision, but it's another thing to explain to people what that process is of getting that vision. And I think breaking the vision down into words and pictures is, I see it more as if I get this job, if I win the job through this treatment, it's already a document that I can then give everyone, from the cast to the crew to everyone, to go like, okay, this is the plan. Because I do think quite logically about one of the things that I always want to know is, what do we have? What do we not have? How far can I push? How far can I not push? And not just from a creative perspective, but also from a production perspective. Because there's no point in saying, I want the following, and it's like, you've got money for a skateboard, man.
So, with the advent of AI and the ability now in these programs to create the story you want, do you think that it will always be a place where pictures and words will have to accompany, say, an AI generated animatic? Or do you think that it'll get to a point where you'll be able to just show the visual representation of what you want to capture and that'll be it?
Man, AI, I have so much to say about AI and so little to say about it. I don't know. It's like AI is the thing that I've always wished for as a filmmaker, because our form of art is so expensive. I can't just grab a camera and a crew and fly to Pakistan or wherever I have in my mind and go and say, hey, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, so I've always felt like a frustrated artist until AI, and then suddenly I was like, wow, I can create, which is amazing. I love the freedom of AI. I love the tools and the techniques and the ability that it gives you. But sure, it does feel like the world has suddenly been injected by the most sugary sugar syrup, like freaking out kind of like energy that's ever been injected into this world, and now everyone's high on this like freaking AI thing. And as an artist, you suddenly go like, wow, so much of, especially the style of work that I love doing, is a visual, poetic narrative that it's inspiring. So like, as an example, I think it was pretty much the last job that I did before AI came out is Standard Chartered Bank, and that was all massive dandelions with trucks driving underneath them and a little girl, wiping up the contrails of an aircraft like candy floss, etc., etc. So it was like these, and I remember how much time and effort we spent on just trying to communicate that to everyone and explain. And then when AI comes out, it's like you can literally write that stuff and it goes bloop, and it's actually the type of stuff that AI is good at. So I find myself suddenly going like, and I still do, there's no point in hiding the fact that AI is scary. It could take my job. There's always that risk that anything can go wrong in life, and that kind of takes us back to the very first question that you asked me. And I don't know if this is while we were recording or not. I can't remember. But you asked about humanity, and at the end of the day, AI cannot be human. Even if it becomes an artificial human, and even if it becomes sentient, it will still just be a machine. So I'll come back to your question now. So I see our roles as storytellers and as filmmakers and as artists to survive this onslaught of what is essentially, in my opinion, trying to, or arguably have killed the meaning of art. What is the meaning of creativity if anyone can make it? What is the meaning of something that's unique if nothing that we see is unique anymore? If I don't know if it's real or not anymore, what's the meaning behind it? Now, I believe that our role is to take what has in the history of the world always felt meaningless in some ways. Like art deals with the things that we struggle with. So instead of fighting AI, which is not going to go away, I kind of wonder what would it look like if we kind of go underground as storytellers, go back to the origins of what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to have relationships? What does it mean to, because we are so engulfed by technology right now that it's easy to forget that we are who we were 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And just because the light, I mean, I see the world and I don't recognize it anymore. I'm like, I don't always know where I am. And so I don't always know how to find my way through this, but that is where we are. And I'm trying to just use those tools. And now I'm back to your question. To yes, exactly. To best show what I have in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's frustrating about AI is that it's still very difficult to do that exactly, or it's probably not if you know how to do it correctly. But I don't want to give too much away from what I have in my mind in a document before the shoot, because you do want to leave some room for, oh, okay, I found this and I see this, and like it's impossible. It's impossible if we are talking about like a physical real life camera shoot to see what's going to happen. That's like reading the future. It's like, oh, this guy's going to look this way, and then the camera's going to be doing that, and we at that moment in time we're going to be pulling focus, and then someone's going to be coming past you, and then at that moment the the PA walks past and it casts the shadow, which we don't see off screen, but it's just that moment of the shadow that crosses, and it's like, oh, it's perfect. That AI can never do. And I hope and believe and trust that clients and agencies, after all this hype is over, will realize that there's a organic nature in humanity and in what we do as a film crew that can never be done in AI. Yes, I can retroactively inject all those things into it, and that's what I do like about the AI and the whole post process, because I often find myself in an edit going like, man, if that kid can just look up, because I've got to, like the end of Rio Tinto is a good example, the end shot. It's like we sat with that ending for a long time in the edit, and then there's this moment and then the bird comes past, and I saw it on the day, and I was like, and I didn't make of it, but it suddenly becomes that it's just the bird that makes you read the line, and everything comes together. Whether I would have thought of that retrospectively, I don't know. Maybe I do like communicating in post a lot. A lot of my work is post driven, but I don't think, and I hope, AI will never overtake us of what it means to tell a story that grows organically. We'll still see where the future leads, because.
So, circling back to that original question and topic we were talking about, we talked about humanity, but now we talk about the industry itself. Do you think that we're missing that as well in this current form, in this current stage of the marketing world? Do you think we're missing that?
Missing what?
The humanity in the work that we put out, in the messages that they're trying to communicate.
I mean, I don't think you can put a blanket statement over it. Some of it, yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of work that just needs to be pushed out as information and just get it in front of people's eyes. But that's like, it's like, look at me. So I don't think that that's art. I don't think that that's real. I mean, if I talk about our industry, I talk more about the creative storytelling in advertising, and not just advertising itself, because that's a whole another world. And the metrics of that world I don't understand, and I don't really care for it at the end of the day, because my currency is emotion. My currency is human connection through a screen. And I've seen some commercials that can do that better than in a feature film. That's what I love about advertising, is that you sometimes get to tell a 60-second or a 30-second story that yeah, you don't need more than that. You don't need an hour and a half or 90, whatever. I suppose it depends on the writer, and it depends on the medium, and it depends on the purpose. And that kind of takes us back to, why are we here? If we're here just to sell another phone, then, I suppose that's one way of doing it. And if there's a story behind it.
Well, then, just do you think the pendulum swung one way further than the other, or do you think we're beautifully balanced right in the middle? We've got storytelling, and then we've got the selling part.
Maybe I don't read enough scripts. I'm not a producer, so I don't see what's around. I mean, I get sent what's in my wheelhouse. So I wouldn't know how to answer that question, because there's a lot of scripts out there that I'm sure the pendulum is not swung. It's like all the way here, it's all the way there. If it's all the way just storytelling, I'm not at that level of directing where people will trust me with that yet. And if it's just product, I'm not at that level, thankfully, where I just have to worry about that. So I suppose I'm a little bit in the middle between being drawn to, I still have a message to say, but I also have the ability to tell a story. So I can only answer it from what I experience, and no, then I would say the majority of stuff that I see does have that balance. And because if it doesn't, like if it swings too much this way, I'll probably, I'll struggle to say yes to it, because I can't invest myself into something. And obviously if it goes that way, I'll jump overboard for it.
What about budget wise? Is it your wheelhouse, the big budget stuff? It looks like it from the work that you do. Does it feel like that for you?
I suppose my work does cost more money than if it is a room with two characters talking over whatever. Primarily, I think my work involves travel, which is what I love. I love traveling. I love seeing new places and experiencing new things, and that's probably the thing that I love most about it being a director, is walking on a rooftop in New York to look for or to be in whatever, all the things that we get. I mean, like on Rio Tinto, I was in the diggers, I was in the equipment. It was pretty cool. So for those experiences to be true, it does involve money. However, I don't think, and now everyone's going to laugh, who knows, every producer or post house is probably going to go like, here, right, who does see this. But I don't think I'm an expensive director in terms of, I don't expect more than what's there. I always try and work with, yes, I push. Obviously I push, because that's the job of a director. If we don't push, we're not going to break any new ground. But if a post house would say to me, listen, this is going to take this, or it's going to cost that, I'm always like, okay, cool, then let's just do this. I try and be creative within the limitations of what I have as a budget. But be creative with your budget. Be creative with your thinking around your budget. Just because you can't have a helicopter doesn't mean that you can't have an aerial shot. And just because you can't have a drone doesn't mean that you can't. And if you then don't have a drone and you can't do an aerial shot, be creative and come up with a better solution. Come up with something that you haven't thought of before, because you don't have those things. So I think budget is an incredibly mythical. The more you have, obviously, the more you can do. But I found often that the less I've had, and this is not an invitation to send me scripts with no money. If the idea is good, please do though. You can find ways of doing things. The more out of the box you think, and the more out of the box you think is probably equally as challenged, or it's a simultaneous process of when you're told, no, you can't have this. So yeah, but yeah, I am fortunate enough that I work on bigger budget things, but also the balance between that is that those jobs don't come often. So as a director, you kind of wish you could work on all spectrums. Because at the end of the day, yes, I'm an artist and I'm a storyteller and I'm all these things that we talk about as filmmakers, but I'm also a dad, and I'm also a husband, and I'm also a man who needs to provide and just, needs to make money at the end of the day, because we need to make a living. So it's that balance. It's easy to just talk about the beauty and the cool experiences and the wonderful times that we have. But at the end of the day, being an artist, and especially an artist these days with AI and everything, it's a hard gig. It's always been hard, but just as we just spoke about the budget. When life gets hard, you need to become more resourceful, which means more creativity, which means more a unique voice, which means more your personality. So I'd say don't get discouraged by small budgets. Embrace it. Say like, okay, wow, I've really got nothing, so I'm going to have to become really creative and see what comes out, because maybe that's actually how you find your voice as an artist.
You were mentioning a bit earlier on, you've had conversations in Edit Suites with clients. You've got to come up on set and think of ideas that you've come to you and you want to get them across the line. Obviously, you've got a partner there in your producer who's working with you. Talk to me about that dynamic and the producers that you've worked with that you think work best with yourself, but get what you're trying to get across and then are able to convey that to the client as well.
Yeah, I'll start at the back. That conveying to the client is crucial. You know, it's like, especially on set, you know, a good producer on set needs to make the client feel 100% comfortable. Like nothing's happening over there, nothing to see there, while there's a house fire happening on this side, you know? It's like chaos. And this side is like, no, it's good. It's in control. You know, that car's meant to be on fire, you know? You know, and that can only come from if the producer really trusts the director, and vice versa. Because if I'm constantly scared of what the client is thinking on set, then I'm going to be second guessing myself all the time. But also on the other side, if I don't have someone who can be my ally and make them understand that I am doing my job, I'm not there to play around. I'm a professional. And if they leave me alone, sometimes they'll get better results. And I'm not the type of, in fact, I like it when I like the collaboration. I invite agencies to stand next to me at the monitor. It's like, because why? Why do I have to go through all these steps to go like, what do you think? I don't have to walk 10 meters every time. Like, what do you think? It's like, what do you think? Just tell me here. And sometimes I need that space alone. Sometimes I want to have a tent around me. Sometimes I just want to say, just put me in black space. I need to think about this. And so it depends. And a producer can help you do that. Now, I think what makes a good producer is someone who doesn't just see the vision, but also wants to make it better. I love a creative producer. I love a producer who can brainstorm with me, who challenges my thoughts and my thinking and my decisions, not just from a practical financial perspective, but also from a creative perspective.
Well, that's it for today on Make the Logo Bigger. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've shared some insights and stories that I hope you found useful. Whether you're just getting started or diving deeper into ad production, there's always more to explore. Keep listening, stay curious, and we'll be back soon with some more from the world of production. Take care until then.